perfect order, like a tide pulling back from a broken shore, from the observation ring above Earth. Han watched the stars go dark one by one. Each light was a gate closing, a route erased, a promise withdrawn. He stood straight, hands behind his back, his dark uniform untouched by rank symbols. Humanity had removed those years ago. Ranks still existed, but pride did not. Around him, officers and civilians stood together. No one spoke. There was nothing left to argue. Far below, the planet turned slowly. Blue oceans, white clouds. A world that had given too much. Han remembered the first day humanity joined the wider galaxy. He had been a child then, watching old recordings in school halls. Aliens with strange shapes and colors had filled the screens, speaking of unity, shared progress, and endless futures. Humans had believed them. Humans had always wanted to believe. Now that belief was gone. A soft sound broke the silence. Ara stepped closer, holding a small data slate to her chest. She was not military. She wore plain gray clothing, the mark of an archivist. Her job was to remember what others wanted to forget. "It's time," she said quietly. Han nodded once. "Begin the final record." Ara touched the slate. A red light appeared, signaling that the message was being sent across every open channel still connected to human space. It would reach councils, trade hubs, border stations, and lonely listening posts across the galaxy. She took a breath and began to read. "This is the last open message from humanity," Ara said. Her voice did not shake. "For 300 years we stood beside you. We shared our science. We fought your wars. We rebuilt your worlds." Han looked away from the stars and into the room. Faces stared back at him. Some were young. Some were old. All carried the same tired eyes. Ara continued. "We were called warriors when you needed shields. We were called monsters when the cost became clear. We were blamed for wars we did not start and punished for. Victories we secured." Memories pressed into Han's mind. A broken moon. Drifting in pieces because an allied fleet fired too early. A human colony burned because its protection fleet was reassigned to defend a richer species. Peace talks where humans were told to accept less because they could endure more. Ara's voice remained calm. "Today, humanity steps away. We will no longer govern your borders, repair your systems, or fight your enemies. Our gates are closing. Our fleets are leaving. Our maps will be erased." Pause. "This is not a threat. It is a decision." She ended the recording. The red light faded. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the station trembled gently as the last deep space gate powered down. The hum that had filled human space for generations fell silent. Humanity was alone again. Across the galaxy, reactions came fast and loud on the trade world of Vurex. Alien merchants shouted in disbelief as human supply routes vanished from their systems. On border stations, defense grids flickered and failed as human-maintained cores shut themselves down. Sealed by codes no one else possessed, in the central council chamber, representatives argued, accused, and threatened. Some laughed and said humanity would return when fear set in. Others demanded sanctions against a species that was no longer listening. Only a few were quiet. Jin was one of them. He stood at the edge of a council hall balcony, watching the chaos below. He was human by birth, but he had chosen to stay when the call to return was sent. Someone had to watch what happened next. Someone had to remember. A council aide approached him. "They will come back," the aide said with forced confidence. "They always do." Jin did not answer. He remembered the message that came before the final one. The private message sent only to human citizens. "We are not running," it had said. "We are choosing survival." Back in human space, the withdrawal continued. Fleets that once guarded alien borders now escorted civilian convoys home. Research stations were stripped down to empty shells. Medical worlds were transferred to local control, their advanced systems locked behind ethical barriers. On a distant outpost near the edge of known space, Han walked through a long corridor lined with windows. Beyond them, stars stretched into darkness no one else had mapped. "Last ship is clear," an officer reported. Han stopped at the largest window. A massive carrier drifted outside, engines glowing softly. "How many left behind?" Han asked. "Volunteers only," the officer said. "Observers? Archivists? Like Jin." Han exhaled slowly. "They know the risk." "Yes, sir." Han gave no reply. He had learned long ago that leadership meant living with decisions that never felt clean. On Earth, cities changed overnight. Military factories became schools and research centers. Propaganda screens went dark. Old war monuments were taken down, not in anger, but in quiet agreement that they no longer defined humanity. Children asked questions their parents struggled to answer. "Are we bad now?" one child asked a teacher. "No," the teacher said. "We are tired." Ara worked deep beneath the surface of Earth, in the archive vaults. Rows of memory cores stretched farther than sight, each holding records of battles, treaties, and mistakes. She labeled the final entry carefully, "The Day Humanity." Left her hands paused over the console. She remembered her first assignment years ago, recording a peace conference that ended in war less than a month later. She had believed then that truth, if preserved, could guide the future. Now she was not so sure. A voice came from behind her. "You think they'll listen now?" She turned. Han stood there. No guards, no rank marks. Just a man who had carried too much. "No," Era said honestly. "I think they won't understand until it's too late." Han nodded. "That's what I fear." They walked together through the vault. "What will they say about us?" Ara asked. "That we abandoned them," Han replied. "That we were cowards. Or tyrants. Or both. And the truth." Han stopped. "The truth is that we stayed longer than we should have." At the far edge of human territory, the last fleet gathered. Thousands of ships formed a silent wall of steel and light. No banners flew. No speeches echoed through the void. Han's voice carried through the fleet channel. "We leave behind a galaxy that did not learn," said. "We do not leave behind our humanity." No cheers followed. Only readiness. The fleet turned as one and moved into the dark, beyond mapped space. Behind them, the galaxy spun on, unaware of what it had lost. On a distant world. An old alien historian watched the stars dim and whispered to no one. We should have listened, but the void did not answer. Humanity was already gone. The galaxy did not fall apart all at once. At first, life continued as it always had. Trade routes shifted. Councils argued. Border wars flared and cooled. Many believed humanity's absence would change little. After all, the galaxy had existed long before humans arrived, but small failures began to stack like cracks in old stone. On the world of Leora, a power grid collapsed during a seasonal storm. Human engineers had once maintained the system, adjusting it every year to match the planet's unstable magnetic field. The local government tried to fix it alone. They copied old manuals, but did not fully understand them. Half the planet lost power for weeks. Hospitals went dark. Thousands died quietly. The council called it an accident. On another world, defense station failed to respond during a pirate attack. The weapons system had been built by humans and required constant calibration. Without it, the station fired too late. The pirates escaped with captured civilians. The council called it a delay. Jin watched these events unfold from a small listening post near the galactic core. The station was old, built during the early days of human expansion. Most of its systems were now sealed, locked by human codes that Jin did not try to break. He sat alone in the observation room, surrounded by silent screens. Only one display remained active, showing open public channels. Reports scrolled endlessly. Failure, collapse, request for aid. Jin leaned back and closed his eyes. He had stayed behind for this. To watch, to record. To understand, a soft tone sounded. A visitor had arrived. The door slid open, and a tall figure stepped inside. The being moved with careful control, wearing robes marked with council symbols. "Jin," the figure said. "You are difficult to reach." I stopped responding. Jin replied calmly. "You are still listed as a human representative." Jin smiled faintly. "Humanity no longer has representatives." The figure hesitated, then spoke more softly. "We need your insight." Jin turned to face them. "You ignored our insight for 3 centuries. Silence filled the room, across the galaxy. Old conflicts returned. Rival species that had been held apart by human peacekeepers began to test each other's borders. Skirmishes grew into battles. Battles became wars that consumed entire systems. Human rules of engagement, once enforced with strict fairness, were gone. In their place came revenge, fear, and old hatred. A council fleet attempted to intervene in one such war. They arrived late. Their ships lacked coordination. 3 were destroyed before retreating. The news spread fast. "Human ships would never have failed like that," civilians whispered. The council responded with anger. "Humanity weakened us," some leaders claimed. "We relied on them too much." Others spoke the truth, but too quietly. "We refused to learn." On Earth, humanity watched from a distance. They did not cut themselves off completely. Long-range sensors still observed galactic space. Signals were monitored. Data was archived, but there was no response. In a quiet chamber beneath the surface, Ara stood before a massive display showing thousands of star systems. Red markers slowly began to appear. "What threshold are we using?" a technician asked. Ara did not answer right away. She studied the screen, her expression calm but tight. "We record," she finally said. "We do not judge yet." The technician nodded and returned to work. Ara remained still. She remembered the faces of aliens, delegates she had recorded years ago. How they smiled during peace talks, then voted against aid when it cost too much. She marked another system as unstable. Jin traveled from world to world, using old human clearance codes that still worked on many stations. He was careful not to interfere. That was the agreement. Observers only, on a shattered mining colony. He spoke with survivors living inside damaged tunnels. "The humans promised to protect us," one miner said bitterly. "No," Jin replied gently. "We promised to stand with you." The miner looked. "Away they are the same thing," the miner said. Jin recorded the statement. Years passed. What humanity had built slowly unraveled. Star lanes grew unsafe. Trade slowed. Food shortages appeared on worlds that once relied on human logistics. The council issued new laws, new taxes, new emergency powers. None of them fixed the core problem. They were trying to replace experience with authority. In human space, changes were subtle but deep. Without constant war demands, research turned inward. Energy systems became cleaner and stronger. Cities were redesigned for balance. Not defense. Children learned history without lies. They made mistakes, teachers said of humanity's past actions. But they tried. No one taught hatred of the galaxy, only caution. Jin stood once more in the council chamber, this time by invitation. The room was full. Voices echoed from every direction. "We demand access too." "Human maintenance codes," one delegate shouted. "You abandoned shared systems," another accused. Jin waited until the noise faded. "You were warned," he said simply. The chamber grew quiet. "You were told to train your own engineers, to learn the systems you used. You chose comfort instead." A delegate pointed at him. "Then fix it." Jin shook his head. "That is not my role." "Then why are you here?" "Someone demanded to witness," Jin replied, "and to remind you of your choices." The first major collapse came without drama, eh? Core world lost atmospheric control after a software failure no one could repair. Evacuation fleets were unprepared. Millions died before help arrived. The council declared a period of mourning. Jin recorded the speeches. None of them mentioned responsibility. On Earth, Han watched the report in silence. He He was older now. His hair showed gray, but his posture remained firm. "They're not learning," he said. Iyun stood beside him, studying the same data. "Learning often comes late." Han folded his hands behind his back. "Sometimes too late." Alt. Jin sent one private message into human space. It was short and factual. Systems failing faster than predicted. Political unity degrading. Military coordination ineffective. No reply came. He did not expect one, as another decade passed. Fear replaced pride. Worlds once loud in their criticism of humanity now whispered regret. Statues of human commanders were quietly repaired instead of removed. Still, no one admitted fault openly. Jin stood alone on a station balcony. "Watching stars flicker through damaged shields, we thought you would save us again," an alien officer said nearby. Jin did not turn. "We already did," he said. "You just didn't keep it." The officer had no answer. The galaxy continued to weaken. Not with one great scream, but with countless small failures, and far beyond their reach. Humanity watched in silence, not with anger, but with the heavy knowledge that this outcome had been predictable all along. Human space no longer felt like a battlefield. For the first time in centuries, there were no emergency alerts echoing through cities. No constant flow of casualty reports. No pressure to send fleets outward. The silence was not empty. It was focused. Beyond the old borders of the galaxy, humanity rebuilt itself. Massive habitats drifted through deep space, arranged in careful patterns around artificial stars. These stars did not burn wildly like natural ones. They were calm, steady, and designed to last. People lived without fear of sudden evacuation. Children grew up seeing the same sky every day. Iyun stood on a wide platform overlooking one of these stars. Light reflected softly off the metal floor beneath her feet. She wore simple clothing, loose and practical, with no sign of rank. Around her, teams worked in quiet coordination. No shouting. No rushing. Everyone knew their task. "How long until full stability?" she asked. 6 months, Du replied. He stood beside her, holding a thin data panel. "We could force it faster." Yoon shook her head. "We don't rush anymore." Du smiled slightly. "Still strange to hear that." Yoon looked out at the star. "Rushing nearly destroyed us. Humanity had changed its structure. There were still leaders, but they did not rule through command alone. Decisions were debated openly, backed by data and history. Every major action carried a delay period. Allowing challenges and review, war planning existed. But it was no longer central. Defense was quiet and deep. Hidden beneath layers no outsider would ever see. In a vast hall, carved into an artificial moon, a council of human planners met. No banners hung from the walls. No symbols of dominance. Ara stood near the center, her hair tied back, holding a projection of galactic space. Red markers had multiplied since the last session. "The collapse rate is accelerating," she said. "Not evenly. Some regions are holding longer than expected." Han sat among the others. His presence was calm but heavy. And the core. Era expanded the image. Political fragmentation. Military distrust. No shared command structure. Han nodded once. As predicted, a younger analyst spoke. "Should we intervene earlier?" A limited response? Yoon answered before Han could. No. All eyes turned to her. "Intervention now would freeze their mistakes in place," Yoon said. "They would lean on us again instead of changing." The analyst frowned. "And if they don't change?" "Then they fall," Yoon replied calmly. The room fell quiet. Era looked down at her data. Her voice softened. "There will be billions of deaths." Han closed his eyes briefly. "There already have been." Life in human space continued. Cities grew, not outward, but inward. More green spaces, more shared areas. Less waste. Education changed. Children were taught survival, not just comfort. They learned to fix systems by hand before trusting automation. They studied alien cultures honestly, without pride or shame. We were not better, one instructor told a class. We were willing to carry more. You worked in a research ring far from the central habitats? Here, humanity explored ideas it once feared. Controlled gravity wells, deep-time shields, weapons designed not for war, but for final defense? Dew stood before a suspended structure of light and matter, rotating slowly. If this works, a colleague said. Nothing like the old threats could survive it. Dew nodded. That's the point. Do you think we'll ever use it? Dew considered the question. I hope not. But hope is not a plan. Far away, in the galaxy humanity left behind, Jin felt the shift. It was subtle. But real signals from human space grew quieter. Harder to detect. More controlled, it felt like watching an ocean pull back before a storm. Jin sat alone in his small quarters. Reviewing reports, more systems had gone dark. A once strong alliance had broken into 3 rival factions. Pirate. Fleets now carried weapons once. Restricted by human oversight, Jin sent another. Report into the void. No reply. On a council-controlled world, an alien governor stood before an angry crowd. You told us humanity was the problem? Someone shouted. The governor raised their hands. We are stronger now. A building collapsed behind them as the power grid failed. The crowd fell silent. In human space, Han walked through a memorial garden. Names were carved into stone walls, stretching farther than the eye could. Follow human names. Alien names. Han paused before one section and placed his hand on the stone. They will call us cold, Ara said quietly beside him. They already do, Han replied. Does it bother you? Han thought for a long moment. It bothers me that we didn't walk away sooner. Ara said nothing. Yoon reviewed long-term projections. Most showed the same result. If the galaxy did not change, it would face a threat it could not survive alone. Ancient. Signals. Dormant structures beyond mapped. Space. Patterns humanity had only recently begun to understand. She flagged the data and sent it to Han. He read it in silence. So, it begins, he said. Human fleets trained. Far from any watching eyes, not in tight formations meant to impress, but in adaptive swarms that moved like thought itself. Every ship could act. Alone, every ship could vanish. Jin stood on a broken station. Staring into open space through a shattered wall, he recorded a final personal note. Humanity is changing faster than predicted, he said. They are not preparing to return. They are preparing to endure. He stopped the recording. Back in human territory. A quiet announcement spread through internal networks. All. Observation thresholds updated. All. Contingency protocols reviewed. No explanation was given. UN looked at the message and felt a familiar weight settle in her chest. Not fear, responsibility, humanity. Was becoming something new. Not conquerors, not saviors, but a force that would only move when the galaxy had truly run out of time. The first sign came. Without warning, a star went dark. It did not explode. It did not fade slowly. It simply vanished, as if someone had chet into the galaxy and turned it off. On nearby worlds, the sky changed in an instant. Day became night. Tide shifted. Panic spread faster than any official message. Sensors across the region failed at the same moment. Long-range scans returned nothing but empty noise. Jin was on a relay station when the reports arrived. He stared at the data, checking it again and again, hoping for error. There was none. That system was stable, an officer said quietly. No known threats. Jin felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Nothing known, he corrected. The council reacted slowly. Emergency meetings were called and delayed as delegates argued over responsibility. Some claimed it was a natural event. Others blamed experimental weapons or hidden enemies. No. One agreed. Another star vanished 2 weeks later, then another. Entire systems went silent, leaving behind empty maps and broken trade lines. Civilians began to flee core worlds, crowding transport hubs. Supplies ran short. Fear replaced denial. In human space, alarms did not sound. Data flowed into deep monitoring centers where analysts worked in silence. Massive screens showed star charts updating in real time. EUN stood at the center of one such room. It matches the ancient patterns, she said. Han stood beside her. Confirmation? Multiple sources, Yun replied. Gravitational distortion. Energy extraction? Beyond known limits. Du joined them, his expression tight. It's not an invasion force. It's a process. Harvesting, Ura said quietly. The room went still. Human records were opened. Archives sealed for centuries came online. Data from forgotten probes, lost expeditions, and abandoned warnings flooded the networks. Humanity had encountered traces of this. Before, long ago, they had chosen not to chase it. In the galaxy, panic turned into chaos. A fleet sent to investigate a vanished system never returned. Their final transmission was short and confused. There's nothing here, the captain said. No debris. No radiation. Just empty space where the stars should be. The signal cut out. Jin traveled to a core council world as the situation worsened. The city was loud with fear. Sirens wailed. Emergency shelters overflowed inside the council chamber. Voices clashed. We need allies. One delegate shouted, we need weapons. Another demanded. A third whispered what many were thinking, but few wanted to say, we need humanity. The chamber fell silent. Jin spoke. They warned you, he said. His voice was calm, but it carried. A delegate turned on him. Then tell them to come back. Jin shook his head. You burned every bridge first. Another delegate stood. We were wrong. That admission felt heavier than any threat. The next disappearance was closer to the core than any. Before, billions died without knowing why. The council issued a full emergency declaration. A message was drafted. It took 3 days of argument to agree on the words. The signal was sent not through official channels, not through military bands. It was broadcast on an old frequency. One humanity had once reserved for disaster aid. This is a request, the message said, not a demand. We face a threat we do not understand. We ask for guidance. The galaxy waited. In human space, the signal arrived. It passed through filters, checks, and delays before reaching the highest review tier. Ian watched it play out in silence. They finally used the right channel, Du said. Era folded her hands. They finally asked. Han did not speak. Time passed. Humanity did not respond. Analysts continued to model outcomes. Most projections ended the same way: extinction, on a dying world near the core. Jin stood on a balcony overlooking a darkened city. The sky was wrong. Stars flickered in patterns they never had before. A young alien stood beside him. Will they come? Jin looked at the sky. I don't know. The alien nodded. We should have listened. Jin said nothing. Another signal was sent. This one was shorter. We are running out of time. It's in human territory. Debate finally began. Not in public. Not in panic. In controlled halls where history carried weight, EU spoke first. If we intervene now, we can stop it, Du added, at a cost. Ara looked at the projections. Half the galaxy is already lost. Han closed his eyes. Human fleets shifted. Positions. Training formations dissolved into readiness patterns. No announcements were made. The threat revealed itself at last. A massive structure emerged near a consumed system. It was not a ship. Not a creature. It was a machine, older than any living memory. It moved slowly, calmly, drawing energy from stars as if they were fuel cells. Council sensors barely registered it before failing. Jin watched the feed from a failing probe. There is no communication attempt, the probe operator said. No reaction, Jin whispered. It doesn't see us? In human archives, a forgotten warning glowed on a screen. If encountered again, do not engage without full readiness. Yoon stood before Han. The galaxy will fall, she said plainly. With or without us. Han opened his eyes. And if we act, we end the threat, Yoon replied. But we change the balance forever. Han looked at the stars beyond the chamber walls. Humanity had walked away to survive. Now survival demanded a choice. The final message from the council reached human space. It was not formal. It was not proud. It was a simple voice. Recording, we are afraid, the speaker said. And we are sorry. As the message ended, in the silence that followed, humanity did not celebrate. They prepared because the galaxy had finally learned the cost of waiting, and whatever came next, there would be no stopping it. The message from the galaxy played again in the quiet chamber. We are afraid, and we are sorry. The words echoed longer than the sound itself. No one spoke at first. Han stood at the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back. Around him were leaders, planners, and historians. There was no anger on their faces. Only wait. Ian broke the silence. They finally said the truth. Oda nodded. Fear removes pride. Du looked at the projections floating in the air. More systems had gone dark since the last update. Fear came late. Han turned slowly. Late does not always mean useless. The debate was not loud. There were no shouts, no threats, no speeches meant to win votes. Humanity had argued long enough in its past. Now they spoke to understand. If we act, Yoon said, we stop the machine. We save what remains. And if we do nothing, a planner asked, then the galaxy ends, Du replied. A pause. And us? Another asked. Han answered. Eventually, it will reach even us. Aura stepped forward. This is not only about survival. It is about meaning. Some looked at her. We left because we were tired of being used, she continued. Not because we stopped caring. A younger leader spoke. If we return, they will depend on us again. Yoon shook her head. Not if we change the rules. The rules that was where the debate slowed. Humanity did not fear the enemy. They feared repeating the past. Han walked alone. Later that cycle, he passed through quiet halls where walls displayed old images, human. Fleets defending alien worlds, human. Medics treating wounded soldiers who once called them monsters, human. Diplomats standing alone after councils voted. Against them, Han stopped before one image. A broken, a human ship burning in orbit. He remembered giving the order to retreat. They had stayed too long, in another chamber. Jin's reports were reviewed. His calm voice filled the room. Civilian evacuation is failing. Trust in leadership has collapsed. Many worlds are sending messages directly to human space, bypassing the council. Yoon paused the recording. They are breaking, she said. Era folded her hands. Breaking can lead to change, or to begging, Du added. A private channel opened. Jin's face appeared. Tired but steady. I was told you might finally speak, he said. Han nodded. We are listening. Jin took a breath. Then listen to this. They are ready to give up control. Real control. Not shared power. Not advisory roles. They want us to decide. Silence. That is dangerous, Ara said softly. Yes, Jin agreed. But it is honest. Humanity considered the request, not just to fight, but to lead again. Yoon spoke with clear calm. If we return as leaders, we fail again. We become the center. Then what do we become? A planner asked. Han answered. The limit. The plan took shape slowly. Humanity would intervene only to stop extinctional threats. They would not govern. They would not rebuild politics. They would not stay. They would act. Then leave. Conditions were written, clear, unforgiving. No. Shared command, no technology transfer beyond. Survival basics. No appeals after departure era. Read the final line aloud. This assistance will not be repeated. Human fleets began to move, not toward the galaxy, toward deep staging zones beyond detection. Their engines were quiet, their formations fluid. In the galaxy, rumors spread. Human ships sighted near old borders. Unconfirmed reports of entire pirate fleets. Vanishing, hope mixed with fear. Jin stood before a council assembly that no longer felt powerful. They are coming, he said. The chamber erupted. When? How many? What do they want? Jin raised a hand. They are not coming to save your governments. Silence fell. They are coming to stop the end. Council leader asked the question no one else dared. Will they forgive us? Jin looked at them. That is the wrong question. What is the right one? Will you finally listen? The ancient machine continued its slow path. Stars died. Quietly, worlds froze or burned. The machine did not hurry. It had all the time it needed. Human weapons were prepared. Not with rage, with care. Du watched test results. With a tight expression, one strike will be enough. A technician said, if aimed perfectly, Du replied, we do not miss. Yoon reviewed casualty estimates. Even success meant loss. She accepted that. Leadership always did. Era recorded a new archive entry, not public. Not shared. A message for the future. We did not return because they asked, she said. We returned because we chose to remain human. Han stood before the assembled fleet commanders. His voice carried across the channel. We go in silence. We leave in silence. There will be no banners, no speeches, no symbols. Paused. We are not there to be loved. Jin received one final message from a civilian world. It was not political. It was not strategic. It was a recording of children singing under a dark sky. Please, the message ended. Jin forwarded it in human space. The final decision was made. No vote, no ceremony, just alignment. Han gave the order. Begin return operation. Across the void. Engines awakened, not like thunder, like thought, humanity. Moved again, not to reclaim the galaxy, but to end what threatened all of it. And once they began, there would be no stopping them. No warning reached the galaxy. There was no grand announcement. No fleet massing in open space. No demand for surrender. Humanity arrived as silence. At the edge of a dying system, space folded inward. Not with light or sound, but with absence. Sensors failed before alarms could form. Then the human ships were there. They did not emerge from gates. They appeared already in position, scattered yet perfectly aligned. Like pieces placed by an unseen hand, Jin watched from a council observation station as unfamiliar shapes filled the void. They're not using known drives, an operator whispered. Jin did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the display. Human ships looked different. Gone were the sharp angles and heavy armor meant to intimidate. These vessels were smooth, dark, and quiet. Light bent strangely around them. Making it hard to judge distance or size, they changed, Jin said. The ancient machine did not react. It continued its slow pull on the system's star, draining it layer by layer. Massive structures unfolded from its core, indifferent to the new arrivals. Humanity did not rush. They observed. Data flowed between ships faster than thought. Every angle, every energy pattern, every distortion was mapped and shared. Yoon stood in a command chamber deep within human space. Linked to the fleet by quantum channels, confirmed target stability, she said. Confirmed, multiple voices replied. Do watch projections shift in real time. It's older than our first cities. That doesn't make it immortal, Yoon said. The first human strike was invisible. No beam crossed space. No missile flared. The machine paused. For the first time in its recorded existence. It hesitated. Energy readings spiked, then dropped. Council observers stared in disbelief. What did they do? One demanded. Jin leaned forward. They spoke its language. Inside the machine, processes failed, not violently. Quietly. Humanity did not attack the structure itself. They targeted the laws it relied on. Gravity constants shifted. Energy equations unraveled. The machine tried to adapt. Humanity adapted faster. The second strike followed, stars across nearby systems. Stabilized, as the machine's pull weakened, entire worlds stopped falling. Apart, cheers erupted on council stations. Jin did not join. Them. It's not over, he said. The machine responded. A wave of force rippled outward, tearing apart everything in its path. Human ships now vanished from normal space, then reappeared unharmed. They had stepped aside, not blocked the attack. Council sensors failed completely. Humanity fought beyond their understanding in human command space. Han watched the engagement in silence. Casualty indicators remained at 0. He did not smile. The machine attempted communication, not with words. With pressure, reality bent around the human fleet. Pushing, testing, searching for weakness, EUN felt it through the interface. It's learning, she said. Not fast enough. Du replied. Humanity ended the battle with precision. A final action collapsed the machine inward, folding its vast structure into a single point before dispersing it into harmless energy. No, explosion followed. The machine was simply gone. Stars burned freely again, across the galaxy. Systems stabilized. The advance of extinction stopped. Billions survived without, knowing how close they had come to ending. Council channels flooded with messages. Praise, thanks, relief, requests. Humanity did not respond. Jin watched as the human fleet regrouped. They did not move toward Council worlds. They did not patrol borders. They turned away. They're leaving already, an officer said. Jin nodded. They said they would, for the last human ship vanished. A single message was broadcast. It carried no symbol and no greeting. The threat has ended, the message said. This concludes our involvement. Nothing more. On a devastated world. Survivors looked up at clearing skies. Some cried, some prayed, some felt only fear. In human space, the fleet returned without celebration. Ships docked, crews dispersed, life resumed. EUN removed her interface gear and sat down heavily. It's done, she said. For now, Du replied. Han walked through a quiet corridor lined with windows beyond them. The stars looked unchanged, but the galaxy was not the same. Era updated the archive. She did not list victories or power displays. She listed outcomes. Threat neutralized. Intervention. Complete departure, immediate. In the council chamber, leaders argued again about rebuilding, about borders, about who would lead now. Jin listened, then stood. You survived because someone else acted, he said. Do not waste that gift. They fell silent. A council leader asked quietly, will they come back if we fail again? Jin met their eyes. No, he said, far away. Human observation systems returned to passive mode. Thresholds reset. Protocols locked. -EUN stood with Han one last time. Watching a recording of the machine's end. They will fear us now, she said. Han nodded. Good, is that what we wanted? No, Han replied. But fear may keep them alive longer than trust ever did. Humanity had returned. They had ended the impossible, and just as promised. They were already gone, for the rest of the galaxy. The truth settled in slowly. It had not been too late to stop the threat. It had been too late to stop humanity. The galaxy did not celebrate for long. Relief faded into quiet confusion as days passed and nothing followed. No human fleets remained. No advisors arrived. No offers of help or rebuilding came through the channels. Humanity had ended the threat and vanished as promised. On many worlds, skies were clear again. Stars burned where darkness had been. People returned to cities. were half empty and systems that barely worked. Survival had been given back to them, but direction had not. The council reconvened. The chamber felt smaller now. Some seats were empty forever. Others were filled by new faces with tired eyes. They argued about responsibility. They argued about borders. They argued about who should lead the rebuilding. Jin stood at the edge of the room, listening. The noise felt familiar. A delegate finally turned to him. "You spoke for humanity once," they said. "What would they tell us now?" Jin was quiet for a long moment. "They would tell you this," he said. "You are alive. What you do with that is no longer their concern." The chamber fell silent. The last human ships did not flee in panic. They did not burn worlds or curse the galaxy as they left. They moved in silence, in across the galaxy. Changes began, slowly, painfully. Worlds that had relied on human systems were forced to learn how they worked. Young engineers studied old manuals line by line. Mistakes were made. Lives were lost. Lessons were learned. Some governments collapsed, others reformed. A few chose cooperation over control. Not because it was ideal, but because failure had made the cost. Clear statues of human figures were taken down not in anger, in respect. Many worlds replaced them with empty spaces. Instead, reminders of absence. Jin prepared to leave council space. His work was finished. He stood aboard a small transport. Looking back at the station one last time, an officer approached him. "Will you return to them?" the officer asked. Jin nodded. "Yes, do you think they will ever come back here?" Jin considered the question. "Only if the end comes again," he said. "In human space." Life moved forward quietly. Cities continued to grow in balance. Children played beneath artificial skies. Unaware of how close the galaxy had come to silence, history classes added new lessons, not about victory, about restraint. Ara closed. The final archive entry. She read it. Once more, before sealing it, humanity returned once, not to rule, but to end what could not be allowed to continue. After that, they chose distance over dominance. She locked the file. Some records were not meant to be revisited often. Yoon stood in a quiet observation chamber, watching long-range projections of the galaxy. Stability indicators rose slowly. Not enough to relax. Enough to continue. Du joined her. "They're adapting," he said. Yuan nodded. "Good. And if they don't?" Yoon's answer was simple. "Then the galaxy will face itself alone." Han walked through the same memorial garden he had visited years earlier. New names had been added, not from battle, from age. From time, he stopped at the edge of the garden and looked up. Humanity no longer chased the stars, they watched. Them Jin arrived back in human territory. There was no ceremony, no questions. He was welcomed. Home like anyone else later. He sat with Han and Ara beneath a quiet sky. "They're afraid of you now," Jin said. Han nodded. "They should be." Ara looked at them both. "Fear fades." "Then memory must not," Han replied. Far away, a young alien stood before a classroom. They spoke of the time, the stars. Went dark, of the moment silence arrived, and of the force that ended it without asking for thanks. What were they like? A child asked. The teacher paused. They were patient, they said, and when patience ended, so did everything else. The galaxy learned slowly, too slowly for many, but enough trade routes reopened with caution. Defense systems were built with shared control? No. Single worlds stood above the rest. Fear of absence shaped better choices than promises ever had. In human space, observation thresholds remained unchanged, silent, watching, waiting, dash. Yoon reviewed a final projection. No immediate extinction level. Threats. She closed the display. "We did what we had to," she said. Han nodded. and nothing more. Beyond the galaxy, deep in the dark where no one else looked, humanity continued to grow. Not outward, inward, they carried. No crowns, they claimed no throne. They held only one promise. If the end came again, they would decide whether it deserved to be stopped for the rest of the galaxy. That knowledge lingered like a shadow across the stars. Humanity had not abandoned them out of weakness. They had left because staying had taught the wrong lessons. Now those lessons were learned the hard way and far beyond reach. Humanity remained what they had always been at their core. Not rulers, not saviors, but the final line the galaxy would never cross again.